Council meeting is now in session of June 16th, 2020. Almost forgot. Pledge of Allegiance. Vice Mayor Jordan, would you
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call.
Mayor Edge,
Here.
Vice Mayor Jordan,
Here.
Councilmember DeVries,
Do you see him? I don't even see him.
Okay, I don't see it.
Councilmember Flores. Here. Councilmember Freeman.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you. Before we get started, we're going to have a moment of silence for 3 individuals who have passed away or been killed recently. And but before we have the moment of silence, I've had some thoughts, a few thoughts, and I just wanted to share them with you. When I think about the senseless killings, the discrimination based on the color of your skin, ethnic background, sexual orientation, or the uniforms we wear and what we represent, it is contrary to our values, and we need to do everything in our power to end it. We need to begin within ourselves. We cannot change the color of our skin, but we can change the way we think. We can teach our children that we are all a human race and that we are all equal. We can recognize our own human values, morals, and respect for others. We can show empathy and love for one another. All lives matter. There is no superior color. Remember the golden rule: do to others as you would have them do to you. And now a moment of silence for George Floyd, Sergeant Jamin Gutzwiller, and Rayshard Brooks. Thank you. So we now are going to open it to public comment. Public comments, anything that is not on our agenda tonight, because it's a regular meeting. So if we have any public comments.
Mayor Edge, I have some public comment that was submitted, and I've been asked to read this.
Okay, thank you.
It's from Irene Guevara. I would like to extend a gratuitous thank you to Mayor Edge for her assistance with our local Feed the Frontline event on Saturday, June 13th. We'd kindly like to request to have the below attached shared with members of the City Council at the upcoming meeting for today, June 16th. Our 2-hour event was hosted from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. with much of our produce arriving the evening before. This simultaneous event took place throughout areas of California and was coordinated with the partnership of the San Benito Health Foundation, the Central Coast Clinic Network, and the Rotary Club of San Juan Bautista. Our local event allowed us to reach approximately 699 participants, and although our event was scheduled to begin at 4 p.m., we saw families begin to arrive as our setup was provided entertainment by local musicians from Teatro Campesino, who played for the duration of the event and received an assortment of fresh produce and dry goods. Our local radio and television networks helped spread the word to Saturday's event, and the staff of San Benito Health Foundation worked to pass out flyers, share the information on social media, and promote the event to our patients. There were hot burritos and bottled waters distributed to provide a warm meal for all who attended, and the distribution of masks with instructions on how to use them was given to each attendee. Many of the participants were incredibly thankful and excited. Attached are a few photos of the event, including a thank you letter to Mayor Edge for the dedication of her time and support in being present to warmly welcome and distribute materials to all of the participants as they attended. And that's the end.
Is there anything else?
No, not from me.
Okay, all right. Any other public comment? Okay, oh, she's got her hand raised. Oh, she has her hand raised.
Yeah,
She's talking, we can't hear her. Rosa, we can't hear you. That is weird. Oh, Rosa, I'm sorry. We can't hear you. Now? Try
Hello?
again.
Okay, hello?
Okay, Vivian,
Can you hear me?
okay, great. Now we can hear you.
I wanted to take this opportunity to thank Mayor Edge personally for the time that you spend with us and making this event a success. And I know that two of our members from the Rotary San Juan Bautista were actively participating in the organizing of this event. Cesar Chavez, City Councilman Cesar Chavez, and also Manager Don Reynolds. So thank you all for making the event a success on Saturday.
Thank you, Vivian.
Don't change my name. It's Flores.
Oh, so I'm sorry. Sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you, Vivian. Anybody else? Any other comment? Elliot, did you have some comments? She's muted.
Yes, I did. Thank you. I also participated going to the San Juan Bautista on Saturday. It was a great event. It was great to see so many people benefiting from it, and all the Rotary volunteers that were there. It was amazing. It was very well organized. And at the same time, would also like to remind people that on this Friday at noon to 1 p.m. at the San Juan Bautista soccer parking lot, there will also be, the major will be there giving away, again, free boxes of produce, 25 pounds of produce, and so far it's been carrots and potatoes and onions and apples. They had dairy products, they had a gallon of milk, they had a pound of butter, they had cream cheese, and they had cheese and cottage cheese last Friday. And so please spread the word that it will be again there on Friday from 12 noon to 1 p.m. No questions asked. Just come by and pick up a box of produce. That would be it. Thank you.
Thank you, Elia. But just for everyone's information, the time is from 11:30 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and the supplier of the food that is coming is Bill Lee. It's from Bill Lee. So those are just a couple of corrections. But thank you, Elia. Anyone else? Any other comments? Looks good, looks clear. Okay, if not, we'll go on to further number 3, consent items. All matters listed under the consent agenda may be enacted by one motion authorizing actions indicated for those items so designated. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless requested by a member of the City Council, a staff member, or a citizen. So is everybody okay with the consent items? I need a motion for us to accept them.
I'll make a motion to approve all matters listed under the consent item under one motion.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second. Yeah, second.
Okay, thank you. That was, did you hear Cesar Flores?
Yes.
Okay.
A roll call vote. Councilmember DeVries,
Yes.
Councilmember Flores,
Yes.
Councilmember Freeman,
Yes.
Councilmember Jordan,
Yes.
Mayor Edge.
Yes.
All members of the council being present, the motion as stated by the maker passes unanimously.
Thank you. So now we go on to number 4, presentations, informal items, and reports. So the first one is Planning Commission presentation of certificates of recognition for National Preservation Month to Dennis Reifenberg for his residence and Inaka Japanese restaurant business owners, the Lowe family.
So HRB co-chair David Medeiros is going to make a quick presentation. David, can you hear me? This is Don. David, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, David. That's a ritual these days to start a meeting like that. David, can you share your screen? I made you a co-host, so you should be able to put up your presentation. If not, I can load it from here.
Okay, let me see if I can do that now.
Okay?
First of all, I just want to say hello to everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
And I hope my voice and my image finds everybody safe and in good health. And I also want to thank all of you for what you're doing, all the things that you've done to make the rest of us safe from this terrible pandemic that we've been suffering through the last several months, you might say. Thank you for all that. That being said, let me see if I can share my screen. Hold on a second. See anything?
Not yet.
I'm sure it.
Only you.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, I'm hang on. I'm
There.
working on it.
Okay.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it. How about now?
No.
Yes.
Got it.
There you go.
Okay.
Okay. Only 5-hour presentation.
Are you ready?
We're ready.
Let's do this.
On behalf of everybody, as far as the San Juan Bautista City Council, San Juan Bautista Historic Resource Board, the Planning Commission, the Historical Society, the city management team, and the staff themselves, and the public. Put a lot of work into this to come up with this decision. That being said, I want to read the citation for the Inaka Restaurant on 313 on Main Street, and it reads as such: whereas the month of May is National Preservation Month, and historic preservation is an effective tool for managing growth and sustainable development, revitalizing the neighborhoods, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character while enhancing livability. And whereas the city of San Juan Bautista supports the Secretary of Interior standards for the treatment of historic properties intended to promote responsible preservation practices that help protect our nation's irreplaceable cultural resources. And whereas the function of the Planning Commission is to guide the orderly development of the city in ordinance with the restaurant, whose rehabilitation of a public building reflects the city's goals to maintain its historical ambience by preserving and restoring the first floor of the A tax block structure at 313 and 315 3rd Street. By saying what they did was using a tricolor paint palette to enhance the architectural details, installing an attractive new awnings, restoring the infrastructure, creating curb appeal for visitors with exterior planters and outdoor benches, enhancing the economic validity of the nationally registered San Juan Bautista 3rd Street Historic District, extending the economic life of the building, modeling responsible stewardship of an historic building. Now, therefore, be it resolved, at its meeting on June the 2nd, we approved and agreed the Planning Commission of the City of San Juan Bautista, on behalf of the citizens, acted to recognize the efforts of Janet and Chief Masaka Gucci and Rodney and Barbara Eo, Steve and Rhonda Eo, and Dave and Zoe Eo in renewing an existing resource at 313 and 315 3rd Street, energizing the local economy, and thanks them for being involved citizens. Thank you. And this was signed by the chairman of the Planning Commission, Scott Friels. We also want to recognize in citation, whereas the Planning Commission wishes to recognize a property owner whose rehabilitation of a private building reflects the city's goals to maintain its historical ambience by preserving and restoring the structure at 709 That would be the Reifenberg house.
He's watching.
That being
Yeah,
said,
he's right there.
what they did was repainting. They did repainting the white and black trim to a fresh soft green, restoring the landscape to an authentic old-fashioned garden, replacing the modern solid plank fencing with open rustic brave stake fencing, creating a curb appeal for visitors and attracting birds and bees as well, maintaining architectural features and making the house much more visible, maintaining a welcoming and inviting appearance to one of the gateways to historic San Juan Bautista, extending the economic life of the building, modeling responsible stewardship of an historic building owned and occupied by the same family, and in parentheses they have Twitchell Reifenberg since its construction in 1912.
Wow.
Therefore, be it resolved, at its meeting on June the 2nd, we also approved the Planning Commission of the City of San Juan Bautista on behalf of the citizens act to recognize the efforts of Dennis Reifenberg in renewing an existing resource at 709 3rd Street and energizing the local economy, and thanks Dennis for being an involved citizen. That also was signed by Chairman of the Planning Commission, Scott Friels. That being said, congratulations on behalf of everyone. Thank you for your support and contribution.
Thank you, David. Congratulations, Dennis.
Preserving our city and our community with your business ventures and residential establishment, and making San Juan Bautista the greatest place to live, work, and help bring greater value in the preservation of our way of life for years to come. Again, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much.
Thank
I'm
you
very
so
honored.
much. So, Dennis, would you like to say anything?
Well, I just want to say, number one, I was really shocked and surprised when I got the letter. And I moved back here 3 years ago after my brother Claude had passed away. And I didn't want to sell the house. It's always been in the family. In fact, Claude was born in this house in 1934. I've always enjoyed gardening and just thinking about my family members that used to live here throughout the years, just to honor them. And also, to be honest with you, I was trying to give a little bit of encouragement for the other residents in town to perhaps do something with their property as well. So it's been fun. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. So thank you so much. I'm deeply gratified.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Is the Inaka family, would they like to say something?
Hello, everybody. We just want to say thank you. It's such an honor
privilege to be a part of our great little community here in San Bautista. And thanks for all the community support.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And congratulations to all of you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. So now, let's see here.
Okay. Now I will make.
Madam Mayor, is there an opportunity for other council member comments
Oh,
at this
yes,
point?
of course. I'm so sorry, Councilman DeVries. Do you have a comment or question?
I do. I just want to commend Dennis, first of all. Great work, Dennis. But even more than that, I think I want to commend the Anaka family, because I think they have set a bar, a standard in San Juan Bautista on 3rd Street and shown future businesses how to do it. Everything that they did there and are doing and have done is just spot on. I think everyone would agree with me. From the logo to the storefront to the weights, everything they do there is just top notch. And I, for one, believe firmly that Anaka is such a quality restaurant. They could have set up shop anywhere. Any community would just stand in line to have them come there. Instead, they chose to come here, and I think that we are very, very fortunate to have them. So I wanted to say thank you to that family, and I think it's a recognition that's well deserved.
Yes, it is.
Absolutely.
I agree with you. Ditto.
Great.
Thank you. Councilman Flores, do you have something to say? Can you hear me? He's muted. Councilman Flores?
Oh, sorry, I have my mute on. I already gave my speech, but anyway, I repeated it. I want to congratulate the EO family and this guys added to our little village. You know, that's what this town's about, putting our stamp on the town and making it ours. It's our village. Welcome.
Right, thank you. Councilman Freeman?
I'd just like to echo what Cesar and Dan just said. To both people, Dennis and the Anaka family, it's great to have you back and have you here, and great to eat dinner down there sometimes, even though we have to take it out.
Thank you. Okay, Councilman Jordan, Vice Mayor Jordan.
Whatever. Thank you all. Beautiful places. It's a pleasure to have you in our community and having our community support you all.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comments from anyone?
Mayor, I would like to also remind everybody that they'll be receiving a plaque, a ready-to-hang plaque, and would be the 2 images that we saw on the screen earlier.
Okay.
Oh, nice.
Okay. And David, thank you so much. You did a very nice job on the presentation. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right. So now we can go on. We'll go on to observational organization and financial review presentation by Citygate.
Thank you. I'm getting Jane, I'm getting Andy Green, and Jane hooked up here.
We're here.
Oh, okay, are you together, Andy? No? Jane's
No, we're. Jane is on the, I see her, but I don't hear her.
Don, have you allowed me to share my screen?
Do that now.
Okay.
There you go, Jane. You okay now?
There. Do you see the slides?
Not yet.
No?
Not yet? Okay. I'm going to go back to Zoom, hit the share screen, and now I'm going to hit the PowerPoint. No? Hit this. Can you see it now?
No.
Go back.
No?
Okay. know I'd have to do all this. All right, hang on a second. Click what, yeah? Okay. Zoom us will not be able to record the contents of your screen.
Just hit.
until- Is there? Okay. I'm gonna hit the share screen again. Now, I see it.
Share.
Share. Okay, now can you see it?
Yay!
Okay, great, thank you, thank you. My husband provided excellent tech support, thank you. I have attended many, many council meetings. This is my first one via Zoom. Thank you for your patience.
No, that's okay.
Didn't realize I'd have a few extra steps there.
That's
so.
all right. Thank you and welcome.
Thank you. Don, did you want me to get started or did you have any intro statements?
Thank you, Jane. This is work that we started at the first of the year. I was so gratified that the council trusted in Citygate to study our organization and our financial position in January, right after we had reviewed the audit and the mid-year budget. So we were rolling into our budget preparation for this year, singing a happy song until you know when. Just the same, it's really great to have Jane's experience as a retired city manager and public works director, and Andy Green, her partner, on this project as a retired finance director, because they took a good look at our general fund and our two enterprise funds and helped us understand with clarity how strong they are. And they found that we were in relatively good shape, and I'll let them present that. We also did a survey. We had a good response, about 150 responses on a citizen survey, and they matched our priorities as we presented when the report first came out. So the council had a chance to review this 6 weeks ago, and now our experts are going to come and share the contents with us today, and then we'll move forward into the new fiscal year. We hope to postpone our budget due to all the confusion that's happening with our finances, but having said that, we have this good baseline to start from. So Jane, we can start from there.
Thank you, Don. And thank you, City Council members. It's great to be back with you. I was with you back there just about 4 months ago, before we all knew what was right around the corner. Glad we were able to be together then. And on behalf of Citygate, Andy and I want to thank you for engaging Citygate in this study. We really enjoyed working with your staff and with you, and our visit to San Juan Bautista. We found it a beautiful community. And we just want to spend a few minutes tonight hitting the highlights of the study. We hope you've had a chance to read it. If you haven't, we would encourage you to do so. We all recognize what a difficult year 2020 has been so far, and we want to compliment San Juan Bautista on the smart steps that you've taken in this year that really set you up to do as well as possible in a lot of these circumstances. You started back there in February, as I mentioned, with the strategic planning study session. That was a lot of hard work on the council's part and the community. And then that was followed up by, in March, with the citizen survey that the city conducted. And then in May, I think it was the 19th, we did receive our final report and the survey summary. And then here we are now in June, and you're looking at, thinking about your new budget and a plan going forward for what all has changed. And we're wound up with a pretty good baseline from which to start. Oops, I'm sorry. Okay, where are we going to go?
We're fine.
We're fine.
Just keep going. You're okay.
Okay. All right. Sorry about that. I didn't realize that was going to happen either. Where was I? Okay, then this slide. I'm going to move forward to the next slide. The results of all of your good planning and those steps
are that you've been able to create a strategic goal set reflective of the community. There's a lot of alignment over broad objectives in the citizen survey responses, which I think was a good thing. You have some new and very timely tools that can be put in place, and Andy's going to go through those with you. And we came up with findings that really establish the baseline of where you were going into the COVID challenges, but also organizationally where you were, and that from those findings flowed some recommendations for action steps going forward. So we have a two-part presentation tonight. I'm going to turn it over to Andy Green for the financial review part, and we go into some depth in that, and then I'm just going to hit the highlights of the four main organizational issues that we concentrated on in the study, and then there'll be plenty of time for questions and comments following that. So without further ado, and further tech interruptions, I'll turn it over to Andy. There you go, Andy.
Alrighty. Thank you, Jane, and again, thank you to the council and the city manager and staff for, as Jane put it, for having us or allowing us to do this. Really happy to have worked within the beautiful city of San Juan Bautista. That was my first time actually being there, and really loved the quaint little area that was there, especially the restaurants that you had. So really appreciate that. So I'd like to start off by this particular slide for the finance-related components in our review. We had a total of 15 findings and 13 recommendations. So we had others related to general operational, but this particularly specifically talks about the findings related to the financial component as a result of our review in early March. Now, again, I want to preface this that, again, early March, it's prior to the COVID-19 really strong hit. So this particular review was at that particular point in time in March. You're going to need to do a lot more as far as getting an idea of what your COVID-19 exposure is going to be. There's a lot of areas and resources that you can use to kind of figure that out. But the big key that I have been involved with in talking with some of my professional collaborators is that it's going to be real difficult for each individual entity to kind of do a blanket statement as far as what COVID-19 impacts are going to be. It really depends on the individual makeup of the community.
Oops.
Unstable internet.
So it still is going to take some effort to make a determination of that, but I know that your staff is working diligently on. One of the things that I wanted to highlight here, and I'm not going to go through all the individual findings and recommendations, but I did want to highlight a few. One being that the general fund, again, at the time that we reviewed, was very, very fiscally healthy. The general fund had a anticipated fiscal year 20 unassigned fund balance of about $2.7 million. And when I say unassigned, that is for the most part unrestricted. You can't spend on everything, but as far as municipal finance is concerned, unassigned fund balance is the most flexible amount of reserves that you have. And the city of San Juan Bautista anticipates having about a $2.7 million unassigned fund balance. That represents about 112% of expenditures. The Government Finance Organization, or Government Finance Association, which is a nationally recognized organization as far as establishing best practices and the like as far as the municipal finance is concerned, recommends about a 2-month unassigned fund balance, 17%. Again, as I said, your fund balance there is 112%, which is over a year's worth of expenditures at your fiscal year 20 budget rate. So very, very healthy. And even more importantly than the unassigned fund balance, it is entirely supported by cash in the general fund. That is a thing that I really need to stress because reserves are one thing. It's wonderful to have these reserves, But if the reserves are not supported by cash, you might as well say that those are unavailable to you to be used for emergencies and those types of things. But in the city of San Juan Bautista, your fund balance or unassigned fund balance is totally supported by cash, which is a great thing. One of the other recommendations, or findings that we had, is that the city needs to do a fee review, and that's just not general fees, but also development fees, to ensure that the costs that you're charging for the various services that you provide are actually covering the cost, or covering the cost to the level that the council desires to cover them. It's pretty typical and standard to have some fees, like such as recreation fees and the like, not cover the full cost of providing the service. But some fees you would want to make sure that they're 100% cost recovery, not recovering all costs as opposed to where you are. Another recommendation that we have as part of the financial report is the adoption of a 5-year financial forecasting plan and capital improvement plan, models of which we have presented with our report, and I'll be going over a little bit more detail in the next couple of slides, that gives the city, or will give the city, a long-term focus on financial components as far as operational and the capital needs that the city may have, again, on a long-term basis. Another finding that we had, sewer and water and sewer operations are undercapitalized. In talking with city manager there, Don, had informed us that the city, if not already, they will be going forward with the implementation of a master plan to get a better idea of what capital is needed, infrastructure, and those types of things, especially in water and sewer, but also in streets and those types of things. But the impression that we had in talking with Don and some of the other members and Public Works and staff members is that the water and sewer, the capital that needs of water and sewer will probably be fairly significant going forward. So Jane, if you can turn to the next slide. Continuing on, the sewer operations fund is in a weak financial position. And looking and reviewing the operations of the sewer fund, the water fund, again, because of the situation that you have as far as the potential capital needs, at least has resources to help soften that blow. The sewer fund, however, in looking at the information that we had back in March, the anticipated ending reserves for fiscal year 20, if all things happen as budgeted, the sewer funds would be looking at a negative $71,000 unassigned fund balance, which doesn't meet your operational or reserve policies. It doesn't meet the GFOA recommendations for levels of reserves. It will have, the sewer fund will have cash of about $500,000, but again, just like the water function, with the extensive or significant amount of capital needs, infrastructure needs, that $500,000 is probably not going to last that long. So again, we're talking about operationally for the sewer fund in a fairly weak position. Another recommendation that we would have that I actually see that's included in the agenda tonight is to explore water sewer rate reviews or increase or adjustments. It hasn't been done for quite a few years, but what we did again find that with the situations that will be needed as far as water and sewer fund operations and capital improvement needs, you need to make sure that your respective fees or rates are at a level that's significant or that's sufficient to cover what your operational needs are going to be. And a matter of fact, you're going to need to make sure that is the case for the outstanding debt that you have anyway. There's usually a covenant that requires you to keep a certain level of coverage, revenues
above the amount of debt service. So again, rate increases potentially, or at least looking at the rate structure that you have, will be something that we recommend that you go ahead and do. The last one I wanted to highlight here as far as our recommendations for the financial side is performance measures. What we noticed is that the City of San Juan Bautista or department-wide or general city operations. And again, the size of San Juan Bautista, you're not looking at, we don't think that you need to go into some very, very extensive performance measure development. I mean, because it can, the recommendation as far as best practice, it can get pretty detailed. But what we're recommending here is kind of a start-off process. You want to make sure that the strategic plans that you put together, the goals and objectives that you're identifying, that your operations are such that it's meeting those. And performance measures that are monitored along the way, reviewed periodically, maybe semi-annually or annually at minimum, that gives you an idea of where you're heading, as opposed to getting at some point in time and finding out that you haven't met any of your goals or objectives. So what we would recommend is picking a few performance measures that pertain more to some of your larger goals that you have, and making those more of a formal process that are reviewed periodically, like I said, semi-annually or annually. Long-range financial planning, as we had talked about before, is extremely important. It's a best practice. It's even more important with the COVID-19 crisis that we're all dealing with and facing. And so the tools that I want to talk about in the next few slides will help the City of San Juan Bautista meet that long-term focus for strategic planning and CIP planning, capital improvement planning, going forward. So Jane, if you can turn to the next slide with that. Okay, the two tools that we have provided to the city, one being the five-year financial forecasting model, which provides a formal plan to assist in development focus of a long-range focus of revenues and expenditures. Where do you think that you're going to be or where you're heading? It will give you an idea of if you react to something today, instead of seeing what the knee-jerk response would be to your actions today, this formal forecasting model allows you to see what the implementation of that action will do to you longer term. So that if there's something that it may solve a problem today but cause a major problem later, it keeps your focus more on a longer-term focus, so that you're hopefully not caught with as many surprises. The model itself is interactive, so it's interchangeable. You can change, update, review, and the things that you do will ripple through the model so that you will see the impact of those changes, assumption changes, and the like throughout the 5-year period. And the models that we've provided, we did a separate model for the general fund. We provided a model for the water funds, and that water funds are the combination of your water operations fund and water capital fund, and your sewer funds, which is a combination of your sewer operations fund and capital funds. We've also provided a model dealing with capital improvement plan, again, to give you a formal process to look at what your capital needs are going to be, again, on a longer-term basis, to identify what your needs are, identify what the benefits are, your potential funding sources, your shortfalls, which are more important than usually the case, and to help you identify infrastructure and prioritize what you can do with the funds that you've identified. And Jane, next slide, please. Okay, let's focus first of all on the long-term financial model. This is the structure of the model, and it's through the Excel spreadsheet format. And like I said, we provided links to the city so that you have access to these particular models. But the structure of the model looks at revenue and expenditures by line item. It's not lumped together. Well, in the summary part it is, but I'll get into that a little bit more. But the structure of the model is lumped into or is identified by individual line items for revenues and expenditures, so that you can take a look and make some assumptions on trends by individual item, and kind of get an idea of, based upon your review and analysis of either past trends or what you hear from consultants that you have, or if you go on to the California Society of Municipal Finance Officers website or the state website, they give you identification of assumptions that you could use for revenues and expenditures and the like. So there's a lot of different places you can get those resources from to develop assumptions list and to develop general assumptions going forward. The model then takes those assumptions, once you place them in there through the model. And I'm hearing something. Is that me or?
No.
Are you guys hearing the music background? Or is that?
We can hear music.
Can you still hear me?
Sorry.
Jane, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. I'm hearing music in my earphones. I don't know what that is. We are. Oh, okay. Okay. So once the individual line items or assumptions are made, the structure of the model is then that those particular assumptions are rolled into a summary version that you can take a look at, a single page summary that shows you, here's what your revenues are going to be, here's what your expenditures are going to be, here's what your other operating expenditures and revenues are, and here's what your results are by those particular funds for a particular fiscal year. The summary also reflects what your actual and projected cash and regular reserves are, both the unassigned reserves or net reserves in the case of net position, as in the case of Juan.
Oh dear. Okay, there you go.
Now we've lost you.
Take over, Jane.
Well, Andy froze up there. I don't know. So he was in actual and projected cash reserves. And then it also has a graphical presentation of those financial activity, operational cash balances and reserve balances. And when assumptions are all updated, all revenue and expenditure details, summary, operating results, cash and reserve amounts and graphs are automatically updated. So then I'll move this forward. He was going to describe to you how the model actually works, and we'll hope he comes back here in a minute. But these arrows were just designed to kind of show the progression of how the model works. So you use the model to develop some assumptions for the line item expenditures and revenues, and that's based on what you kind of expect from some research for the next 5 years. And then you insert those assumptions as a percentage for each line item into the model. And once those assumption percentages are updated, the model will automatically be updated then by line item. And based on automatically updated revenue expenditure numbers, the summary then can be updated. And then also based on the updated summary, the graphs can be updated. And then we wanted to show you the sample of the model summary page. And these aren't the actual, these are some of the actual numbers, but they're not your current numbers. It's just a sample. And it shows you what you can do with this model for over the 5 years. And really the whole base of showing you this is just to try to help you as council members and staff understand the full abilities of the models that we've given you to work with, and they're living tools really to go forward with. And then here's a sample of the type of model graphs that you can see from the models that we've built for you. Again, these are just samples, but as council members, I would say you should expect to see some of these graphs and the model used by your staff in the future going forward. That's one of the takeaways from this study.
Your reports are going to be awesome.
And then the 5-year, I don't know, Andy, you can jump in anytime you get back with us. The 5-year capital improvement model, he went through the same thing here to show you that basically the capital improvement model is the same idea. You start with some baseline information. You can update it annually as your projects change and priorities change, and then it can provide you with the basis for a final CIP to be adopted by the city council each year. And again, as council members, you want to look to see this updated. You want to see it used. That's the main takeaway here, is that you have this working tool that should be used. And this final one is a sample of the CIP summary page, which again is just a sample to show you of what the contents of the page has, and then how it would be updated. So this is for one line item. It's called water line upgrades, and it can be updated throughout the years going forward, so you have some idea over 5 years of what you need. So with that was Andy's.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
I will just keep going on into mine.
Thank you, Andy.
Yeah.
So in my part, the organizational part, what we heard and learned about as we listened in San Juan Bautista, and we talked with you, and we had the different interviews, and we studied some of your data, we really found that these 4 issues kind of bubbled to the surface as being action items that going forward can be worked on to bring you to where you want to be in terms of those priorities that you're thinking about. The first one is to building on a strategic planning priorities. That's really what I called focus, I think, at the strategic planning time that we had together. That's really focused, the planning priorities. And then building on staffing expertise and skills. This is really maximizing what you have to work with, your people and your time. And then designing a path for infrastructure renewal and upkeep. I'll discuss that a little more fully in a minute. And developing an enhanced role for community planning and development. So the first of those, building on strategic planning priorities, I was really impressed, and so was Andy, how the community expressed a desire to work together, both inside and outside of City Hall. And the community also shares a lot of agreement on what needs to be addressed there in San Juan Bautista. And so we encourage you to make decisions around strategic objectives, both as your budgets are developed and adopted, and in everyday project delivery. And so this can seem like a pretty generalized statement, but it's just so essential for a small community like San Juan Bautista to really learn that discipline of focusing together on a few objectives and bringing them to fruition. And you will get a lot of bang for the buck that way. It's a big challenge. Everybody has so many things that come at them now. It's sometimes hard to know what the priorities ought to be, but if you continually go back to ask yourself, how does this relate to these 4 or 5 things we really want to see happen here in our community? And that will help you sort through things that can seem urgent at the time but maybe don't fall right into your strategic objectives. And then again, building on staffing expertise and skills. This is huge for you to achieve your objectives. These 3 items that I bullet pointed are really important, and I'll help to explain them a little bit. So determine when to outsource tasks. So this is just getting good at, with practice and skill and some experience together, figuring out what makes sense to hire somebody else to do it and not to have staff do it. And it's an art, not a science. But I would encourage you to engage in it and work with staff as they bring things forward, that they can identify things that say, we could hire somebody or a company, or we could get this done another way than us actually doing it too. Sometimes people are reluctant to do that because they think a particular task is essentially to be done by city staff. But if you ask yourself why and how and get comfortable with doing some of this, it really helps, particularly for a small city. And then the second thing is examining procurement processes for efficiency. And this is where councils struggle a bit, because you want to maintain proper oversight over what is being spent and how it's being spent in the city. But at the same time, you don't want your staff rewriting the same staff report a meeting after meeting for the same items. So where items can be purchased together that make sense in their routine and you're comfortable with the routine, they can be packaged in inventive new ways, just again to free up the staff. Something could be handled for, say, to a 2 to 5 year period instead of being handled every 6 months or every 3 months or 2 months. That's where those efficiencies can help. And then examine where routine staff reports can be standardized. Same idea, where you have something routine, that you work out something that works for both council and staff as a way to minimize the amount of work, fresh new work that has to go into it for staff each time. And then finally, the infrastructure renewal and upkeep. I picked that picture, was sent to me, and I thought it was a perfect picture of heavy lifting, because you have a lot of heavy lifting to do in San Juan Bautista with your infrastructure. You all know that, but I would encourage you that designing a path forward could mean a series of small, smart steps can lead you in places you don't even think you can go today. And one of the examples I would leave you with is the city of Ukiah. Since I've left there, it had done a series of small steps toward a water regeneration or using recycled water system. And when I left there, there was no hope really of a full-fledged recycled water system for the community. We all wanted it. But now today, 5 years later, there is a very vigorous recycled water system being built. And I would never have guessed it could happen when I left there. So that's what it means if you start the path with your engineers and public works and recommendations from staff and others. You can start to take small steps that position you for money in the future. And that's what we had been doing in Ukiah for several years, really positioning ourselves. And then that came to fruition with, I think they're going to go into a phase 2 or phase 3 of a long-term plan for water recycling. So that's just an example of what you might be able to do. And then the enhanced role for community planning and development. This is just a recommendation to work effectively through both your current and long-range planning efforts. And again, that's the same idea. I know there's some different thoughts in the town about what some of that might look like, but I just encourage you to plan for the future by taking incremental steps to places you want to get to. And that way you think of it as positioning yourself for where you want to be. And there were some specific recommendations about that in the study. So with that, I guess I will answer any questions, and I hope that we'll hear from Andy again here soon. Maybe he can phone in if nothing else.
Andy is back on. Yeah, Andy should be back on.
Yeah. So thank you, thank you so much for the presentation. I'm sure Andy will come back, but maybe Councilman Flores, do you have any questions or comments? Councilman Flores, can you hear me?
I think he's muted.
Okay, so how about Councilman Freeman? Oh, are you there?
I just want to thank Jane. Jane, thank you so much for your input in our little village.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Councilman Freeman, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, I also wanted to thank Jane and Andy. I think they came up with a great list of recommendations. It looks like we have quite a bit of work ahead of us. I wanted to say to both Andy and Jane, one of the interim city managers a couple of years ago, he and I were both talking, and he said that we needed to have development fees really looked at and raised. And so that's the second set of eyes, or second time I've really heard this, and we've just kind of been so busy lately. I haven't gotten on it or anything, but thank you for bringing that back to the forefront, and maybe Don can think about it for a little while.
Thank you.
Well, and I would encourage you not to be overly discouraged about that. It may take a few times going to the community and discussing them and talking it through. And the community can learn in that process too. They may react very strongly sometimes. You may even kind of, push and pull a little bit, but the community really did express strongly a desire for updated infrastructure. So I think you have a lot to work with there. It's just helping to make the case.
Okay.
Jane, I'm back on. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I apologize. I got a bunch of squiggly lines on my screen and kicked me out twice. So I apologize to all.
That's
Well, Andy,
okay.
we're all the way through. I just walked them through our slides and we're into questions. So
Okay, sounds great.
Good, and welcome back, Andy.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're taking questions and comments now. So next is Councilman DeVries. Do you have a question or a comment?
No, not at this time. I mean, it was an excellent presentation by both Andy and Jane. Thank you both for that. I think it spurs a lot of additional thought. So I have things going through my mind, none of which I think I'm able to articulate in the form of a question or anything at this time, but I think that's probably what Jane and Andy were aiming for, is just to get us to start thinking about it.
Right, okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
indeed.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Jordan.
Andy and Jane, thank you so much. It has been a pleasure working with you both, and I appreciate all of the work that you have that has gone into this presentation and the outcome. It's my understanding that we have these models, that they're ours to use, to have and to hold. Awesome. Thank you.
That's correct.
Nice.
Yeah, that is correct.
Yay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'd like to open it up to...
Well, if I could just say one quick thing. I wanted to compliment Andy and Jane and how they worked with staff. Andy in particular, we had 2 or 3 hour-long discussions with Wendy Cumming, our CPA, and she thanked Andy when it was all done. It kind of felt like a deposition or interrogation at first, but she got through it with flying colors, and when she was done, Andy, she's all, oh, glad that's over with. Thank you for being there. So yeah, it was work. It was work to help facilitate this, and we're really happy with the outcome. And I wanted to assure our council that our CPA was on board with the whole process.
Nice.
No, that's
Awesome.
nice. Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you again, Jane and Andy. So, did you have any other comments you wanted to share with us, or before we go on?
Andy, do you?
Oh, I don't.
Thank you. I think we've taken enough of your time. Thank you so much for bearing with us on our tech
Oh,
difficulties.
no, that's okay, it was fine. So now we go on to item 4C, understanding the city's new pavement management program presented by Capital Assets and Pavement, Inc.
Okay, we need Jane to stop sharing. Thank you, Jane. Okay. And I'm looking for Joel. Let's see, there's Joel.
Joel.
Yeah. And we can co-host. Joel, we just made you a co-host.
Okay,
And can you load your presentation for us? Can you share the screen?
we're gonna give it a try here.
Okay, and Julie, I'll let Julie, our city engineer, introduce Joel. Thank you, Julie.
There it goes. Great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor Edge, members of the council. Before I start introducing Joel to you, I just want to give you a brief background on what Measure G is and where we're standing with some of our projects. In November of 2018, the voters of San Benito County approved a special 1% tax to help pay for street improvements, and that's known as Measure G. Now, in order to qualify to receive Measure G funds, the city had to adopt and implement pavement management program. And we went through a competitive process, and we selected Capital Assets and Pavement Services, which from now on we're going to call them CAPS. It's such a long name, so we're going to keep repeating that. CAPS completed our pavement management program in March, and then on May 19th of this year, staff presented, the title was the March 2020 Pavement Management Budget Options Report by CAPS, and we asked the council to accept and approve the report. And at the same time, we informed the council that staff would be back to present the report in detail. Now, here we are tonight. We're here to present the report, and including all the 4 scenarios analyzed. And with that little background, I would like to, at this time, turn it over to Joel Ponder from CAPS to present the report, and then we could answer any question you may have. Joel, please take it over.
Thank you, Julie. Mayor, council, thank you very much for having me tonight. I'm visiting you from rainy Salem, Oregon, right now.
Oh, wow.
So yes, we are definitely an Oregon company that we work in the Bay Area all the time. We've worked on probably over 80 cities and counties in the San Francisco Bay Area. So very familiar with your area. And I had a very enjoyable time coming down there, working. And one of the things I got to do that probably not many people can say they've done is walk every single street in San Juan Bautista from one end to the other. So I got to see every inch of your city. Beautiful city, and some of the nicest people I've ever met. And some of the places I work in down there, I've got to always look over my shoulder so I don't get run over. But down there, very, very nice people down there, so I enjoyed my trip down there. So kudos to you guys for a wonderful city. Tonight I want to talk to you a little bit about pavement management. And what pavement management is is a computerized system that inventories all of your pavement. We put every single street that belongs to the city in a pavement management system. We measured it from end to end, so we got it down to the square foot, how much pavement you have. And then we went out and we did the analysis as far as I counted all the cracks, the patching, and all the surface stresses. We put that all into a management system, and it comes up with it, and it does the analysis of this, and it comes up with basically tells the city exactly what they have, what they should be doing moving forward with their road conditions. So it shows the effect of your past maintenance, what you guys have been doing in the past there, which I know it was not a whole lot. It kind of points you through the right direction moving forward. As far as your maintenance decisions, what you should and shouldn't be doing, basically performing the optimum treatment in the optimum year. You're going to hear the acronym PCI a little bit in the next few minutes of my presentation here, and that stands for the Pavement Condition Index. And that goes from 0 to 100. So if you see a road that has a 0, that means it's pretty much gravel, and a road that has 100 is a brand new road. So we use the Street Saver pavement management system, and it's the preferred choice software on the West Coast, and it's mandated to be used by all 109 cities and counties in the San Francisco Bay Area that fall under the MTC, the Metropolitan Transportation Commission umbrella. And I know you guys don't, you're just south of the limit there, so, but all of your neighbors are using this, so you guys are using the same program that everybody else is using. What we did is like I said, I walked every single mile in your city, and you guys came up with a pavement condition index, remember the PCI, equal to 62. So on that 0 to 100, your city has a score of 62. And I will tell you that that is a low score. The average in the Bay Area down there is usually in the mid-70s. So when I see any jurisdiction with a PCI in the 60s or lower, that sends off a lot of red flags. It means that those streets have not been maintained as they should be in the past. So this is what we're here for, to help you start moving forward and increasing that PCI. You can see by the chart on the screen there that you have about 48% of your networks in good condition, a little less than 10% in fair, 40% of your conditions in poor, and that's really a high number for a city your size. Usually that number is down around 15 or 20%. So you guys have a lot of very poor streets, very old streets in that town that have been neglected. And then you can see you just have a little bit of very poor streets in there. Moving on to the next slide, you can see this is what I call the pay me now or pay me later slide. It's a pavement deterioration curve. It basically shows pavement has a 20-year life cycle, and you can see it starts out excellent, and it goes along, pretty even there for a while. But when you get to about years 10 and 15, pavement has a huge drop-off, and that's where you need to be applying maintenance treatments, and that's where I see where the city's kind of missing the boat. If you'll look at that there, you'll see that the cost is about $6 a square yard to perform preventive maintenance at year 10 or 15 of its life. And if you let it drop, you see it drops into that $20 a square yard. So you can see the significance. That's why I say pay me now or pay me later. So the pavement management system is really trying to get you to maintain your roads that are in good condition. A lot of people, one of the reports that we put in the budget options report was sections selected for treatment. And a lot of council members will ask me, Joel, why are you suggesting that we maintain our good streets? Why are we putting our money into streets that are in that good condition when we have so many streets that are in the poor condition? And really the basic reason for that is those streets are in good condition, so let's keep them there, and let's focus our money there. And then once we get all of our good streets taken care of, put some kind of preventive maintenance on it, then we can turn our attention to the poor streets. Because if you do it the other way and just focus your money on the poor streets, and it's kind of like crisis management instead of pavement management, then all those good streets are falling at the same time. So that's why there's a pavement management really points you to fix and maintain your streets that are in good condition and keep them there. And you can see on this chart here how much cheaper it is to do that. We'll go ahead and move on to the next one. And this is, like Julie was saying, we ran 4 different scenarios with the data once we had it all. The first scenario we ran is the unconstrained needs. And that's basically, I call it the blank check theory. And that's that the city of San Juan Bautista had all the money in the world. What should they be fixing? And it shows right here that you have about $3.5 million today in deferred maintenance of your streets. You're that far behind the 8 ball. So if you had $5.9 million over the next 5 years, you could get your streets up into an acceptable condition category. So that's a pie in the sky, and we realize there's only one city I've worked with in the Bay Area that ever had unconstrained needs, and that was the city of Mountain View. And I have a feeling it has something to do with the .commerce there, but realistically, cities don't have that kind of money. But we just wanted to run a scenario and say, okay, how far behind the 8 ball are you? And that's the answer. You guys are $3.5 $5 million behind the 8 ball here in another 5 years. So at your current funding level, you are losing ground, and that's what we needed to look at. So we ran a third scenario saying, okay, what's it going to take for the city to maintain their current condition over the next 5 years? And you can see it's about $275,000 a year just to maintain where you're at today 5 years from now. So that kind of gives you another idea of where we're headed here. And the last scenario we ran is increase your PCI by 5 points. And this is the scenario that most city managers, mayors, and councils ask us to run. So now we just kind of put it as one of our canned reports. It's like, how do we make our streets better? Let's get a realistic goal. We understand that pie in the sky, you know, 5.9 million over 5 years is not going to happen. Give us a scenario where we can increase the PCI by 5 points, which improves our street network. And to do that, you would need to spend about $450,000 per year. Remember, today you're at $176,000. So it's a long ways away. But you can see your deferred maintenance will be going down if you do that over the next 5 years. So moving on, we're going to look at some of the, just quickly look at some of the maps, because I don't like to put spreadsheets up and give you all that data. We just put the map up. It kind of is a better way to do it. So when you look at these, this first map here, you can see by the colors of the map, everything that's green is good. So when you see green roads, that's a great thing. You see blue roads, that's a pretty good thing. The other colors are all warning signs. The yellow, the orange, and the red are roads that are in fair to poor or very poor condition. So you can kind of see on the outskirts of town, which I'm guessing must be the newer part of town, have some nice new streets, and they look great. That city center there, the older part of town, obviously has older roads. So this is a great way to look at your data. Again, this is what it would look like if you guys had all the money in the world under scenario 1, the unconstrained needs. All the roads would be green. If we move to the current funding, you can see the green roads there, and you can see where your, you know, the poor roads are. The red roads are obviously flagged right there. So that's on your current funding. So if you keep going like you are, those are the roads. That's what it's going to look like. To maintain your current PCI, this is what it would look like. So, and these are all maps that are available in your report. You guys can look at and play with. This is increase your PCI by 5 points. You can see you have a lot more green roads, and overall your street network conditions in way better shape, and you're really knocking down those red roads. So that's really a scenario you'd like to look at closely. The next couple of maps are just going to show you what the unconstrained needs. Remember that all the roads turn green. This is going to show you what type of treatments the program's recommending you use, whether it be a grind and inlay or overall paving or reconstructing or putting a seal coat on it or whatever. All the things are listed over there on the left. So these are just the treatments that each street would take. So people always like to know, well, what are you going to do if we give you more money for your streets? What are you going to do, and which streets are going to be done? And this is the way to look at it. So, and then this slide here is basically takes all 4 of those scenarios and kind of crunches it all together so you can look at all 4 of them at one time. And that's kind of the scenario, the slide I like to leave you with, because most questions are going to be answered right here on this slide. So that's kind of basically my presentation in a nutshell. And if anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to take them right now.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Julie and Joel. We'll go on to see if the council members have any questions or comments. Councilman Flores, do you have any comments or questions?
No comments, but I see 7th Street is going to be green one of these days.